Story 1: The Stepfather Who Never Blinks. The first time 12-year-old Ethan noticed it, he thought it was just nerves. His mother's new husband, David, had moved in only a week ago, and everything still felt wrong: the smell of his cologne in the hallway, his suitcase by the door, the way his toothbrush sat beside his mother's in the bathroom, claiming space. Ethan told himself it was just change. But it wasn't. Dinner that night was quiet. Too quiet. The clinking of forks against plates filled the space like an unwanted soundtrack. David sat across the table, back straight, face calm, chewing in complete silence. Ethan kept his head low, pushing peas around his plate, but curiosity crept in, and he dared to glance up. That's when he saw it. David's eyes were open, wide open. He was staring directly at Ethan, chewing, but not blinking. Not once. Ethan looked away, his skin prickling. He waited a few seconds, then looked back. Still chewing. Still staring. Still not blinking. "Everything okay, sweetheart?" his mother asked, her tone too cheerful. Ethan forced a smile. "Yeah. Just tired." But when he looked at David again, he swore the man's lips curved into the faintest smile, like he knew Ethan had noticed. That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. The walls felt thinner somehow. He could hear footsteps in the hallway, slow and careful, like someone pacing just outside his door. He thought maybe it was his mom, but the steps were heavier, deliberate, pausing between each one. He held his breath and listened. The footsteps stopped. Silence. Then, creak. The doorknob turned slightly. Ethan froze. His eyes darted to the door. It was dark, but he could see the faint silhouette through the crack, someone standing there. Just standing. He didn't move for minutes, maybe more. When he finally found the courage to whisper, "Mom," the silhouette turned and walked away. In the morning, he told himself it was a dream. But when he went to the kitchen for breakfast, David was there, standing perfectly still in front of the window, facing the backyard. Not eating, not moving, just standing. His reflection in the glass looked distorted in the morning light. Ethan couldn't tell if his eyes were open or closed, but his posture was unnervingly straight, like a doll propped up and forgotten. "Morning, champ," David said suddenly, without turning around. His voice was smooth, deep, and calm, too calm. Ethan froze mid-step. "Morning. You sleep well?" "Yeah." David turned then, slow and deliberate, like something mechanical learning to imitate human movement. "Good," he said with a smile. "That's good." His eyes didn't match the smile. They never did. At school, Ethan told his best friend Marcus. Marcus laughed, "Of course. Dude, maybe your stepdad's just weird. Some people don't blink much." "Not like this," Ethan said. "He just watches. Even when mom's not around. Maybe he's trying to bond." Marcus offered, but Ethan shook his head. Bonding didn't feel like that. Bonding didn't feel like being hunted. Over the next few days, the house grew stranger. Ethan noticed how cold it got at night, even though the thermostat stayed normal. He'd wake up to find the living room lights on, or the kitchen chair slightly turned toward his bedroom door. One morning, he found muddy footprints by his bed. They weren't his. He went to tell his mom, but she was different too. More tired. More distant. Every time he brought up David, she brushed it off. "He's just adjusting," she'd say. "It's hard for adults too, you know." Ethan stopped trying. But that night, as he lay in bed, he heard whispering through the vent. At first, he thought it was the wind. But the whispers grew clearer, sharper, like someone murmuring right through the walls. He pressed his ear to the vent. Watching him, Ethan's blood ran cold. "The boy doesn't sleep," he backed away slowly, heart pounding. The voice was low, familiar. David's voice. He didn't sleep that night. The next morning, his mom was gone. "Early shift," she said. David made breakfast. Pancakes. Perfectly shaped, golden brown, like something from a commercial. Ethan sat across from him, trying not to make eye contact, but David was already staring. "You're not eating," he said flatly. "Not hungry." David tilted his head. "You need to eat. You're growing." "I said I'm not, eat." It wasn't a request. Ethan picked up his fork and took a bite. The pancake was cold. Not just cold, wrong. Like it had been sitting there for hours. He chewed slowly, trying not to gag. David smiled. "Good boy." Something in Ethan snapped. "Why do you keep staring at me?" he demanded. David didn't answer. He just blinked once, his first blink in days. And when he opened his eyes again, they looked different. Darker. "Because I'm making sure you stay safe," he said softly. "Your mother worries." Ethan wanted to scream that he didn't believe him, but the words caught in his throat. David's stare was heavy, suffocating. Like being pulled underwater. That night, Ethan locked his door. At 2:47 a.m., he woke to the sound of breathing. Slow, rhythmic, just outside his door. He sat up, listening. Then, scratching. The faint scrape of nails against wood. Ethan reached for his phone, but the screen was dead. No battery. The scratching stopped. Then came the whisper, "Ethan." He froze. "Ethan, open the door." It was David's voice. Calm. Measured. Too calm. Ethan didn't move. After a few seconds, David spoke again. "I know you're awake." The doorknob twisted. Once. Twice. Then stopped. A few seconds later, silence. Ethan waited for minutes before getting up and tiptoeing to the door. He looked through the keyhole, nothing. He exhaled slowly. But when he turned around, something was standing by the window. David. Eyes open. Smiling. Not blinking. Ethan screamed. His mother rushed in moments later, flicking on the lights. The room was empty. The window was closed. David appeared seconds later, sleepy-eyed, in his robe. "What's going on?" his mother asked. Ethan pointed to the window. He was here. He was in my room." David frowned. "That's impossible." "I was in bed." His mother sighed, rubbing her forehead. "Ethan, honey, you've got to stop this. You're having nightmares." "But I'm not, no more. Go back to sleep." David gave Ethan a gentle pat on the shoulder. "We'll talk in the morning," he said softly. Ethan flinched at the touch. He didn't sleep. At dawn, he packed a small bag. He was leaving. He didn't know where, maybe Marcus's house, but anywhere was safer than here. He crept down the hallway, every creak of the floorboards sounding like thunder. The front door was in sight when he froze. David was standing there. In the dark. Waiting. "Going somewhere?" he asked. Ethan's breath hitched. "Move." David smiled faintly. "Your mother wouldn't like that." Ethan took a step back. "You're not my dad." "No," David said, eyes glinting. "But I'm becoming him." The words hung in the air like smoke. Ethan ran. He didn't look back. He bolted through the back door into the yard, but the cold hit him like ice. The trees looked wrong, twisted, stretched, like shadows painted over reality. The air felt thick, humming with something alive. Then he heard it, the sound of footsteps behind him. Slow. Steady. Crunching on the grass. Ethan. He turned. David stood a few feet away, eyes wide open, still unblinking. The skin around them looked wrong. Tight. Pale. Like something wearing a man's face. "Stay away!" Ethan yelled. David smiled again, his mouth too wide this time. "It's okay," he whispered. "You'll see soon. We're all one family now." His neck twitched, bones cracking like branches. His skin rippled, shifting, like something underneath was trying to come out. His eyes rolled back, revealing only white. Ethan ran through the yard, across the street, until he reached Marcus's house. He banged on the door until Marcus's dad opened it. "Please," Ethan gasped. "He's not human." They called the police. But when officers checked the house, there was no sign of David or Ethan's mother. Just 2 plates on the table. 2 half-eaten pancakes. And a note in neat handwriting. He blinked. 3 days later, Ethan's mother was found wandering near a highway, dazed and alone. She didn't remember anything after that night. David was never found. Ethan now lives with his aunt. He sleeps with the lights on. But sometimes, late at night, when the house is quiet, he swears he hears footsteps in the hall. And when he looks toward the doorway, there's always a man-shaped shadow standing perfectly still, eyes wide open, watching. And never blinking. Story 2, Mother's New Husband. The first thing that felt wrong wasn't the man himself. It was the smell. When Claire's mom remarried, she'd told everyone how normal he was. A gentleman, she'd said, someone who knows how to take care of people. His name was Daniel Hart, a soft-spoken accountant with clean fingernails, expensive shoes, and an easy smile that seemed to stretch just a little too far. At the wedding, he'd held Claire's hand and told her, "You remind me of someone I used to know." She laughed awkwardly, but later that night, she couldn't stop thinking about what he meant. Now, weeks later, his scent lingered everywhere, the faint tang of cedarwood and something else, something old and sweet, like decaying flowers left too long in a vase. At first, Claire tried to stay out of the house. Between classes, friends, and her part-time job, it wasn't hard. But every time she came home, she felt the air shift. The silence seemed to hum. And Daniel was always there, waiting in the kitchen, or sitting too close to her mother on the couch, eyes following Claire like a camera that never blinked. One Friday night, she came home late. Her mom had gone to bed, but the living room light was on. Daniel was sitting at the table, a small box in front of him. "Hey, kiddo," he said softly. "You're out late." "Study group," she lied. He smiled. "I remember being your age. Always on the go." Claire nodded, wanting to escape upstairs. But as she turned, he called out again. "Oh, before you go. I found something of yours." He opened the box. Inside was a faded teddy bear, one Claire hadn't seen since she was 6. Her breath caught. "Where did you get that?" "It was in the attic," he said casually. "Guess your mom kept it." "No," she said, frowning. I burned that." He chuckled softly. "Oh, Claire. You must be mistaken." But she wasn't. She remembered that night vividly. She'd been 13, angry and desperate to grow up, tossing all her childhood things into a metal bin behind the house, striking a match. The fire had eaten everything, drawings, old toys, that bear. She'd watched it burn. And yet, here it was. Perfect. Untouched. She forced a laugh. "Weird. I must have imagined it." Daniel smiled wider. "We all misremember things sometimes." As she turned to leave, she heard him whisper, almost lovingly, "I'm glad he's home again." She froze. "What?" He blinked. "Nothing, dear. Good night." That night, Claire couldn't sleep. The house creaked like it was breathing. Around 2 a.m., she heard something, faint rustling from the attic above her room. She stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. Maybe it's just rats. Or wind. But then came the softest sound of all, a man humming a lullaby. The same lullaby her mom used to sing to her as a child. She sat up, every nerve on edge. The humming stopped. Silence. Then, 3 slow footsteps. Right above her. The next morning, Daniel was in the kitchen making breakfast, humming that same tune. Her mother was nowhere to be seen. "Sleep well?" he asked cheerfully. Claire stared. Were you in the attic last night? He looked surprised. The attic? No. Why? I heard someone up there. He tilted his head, smiling faintly. Old houses make sounds, Claire. They remember things. She pushed past him and grabbed a glass of water. The air felt thick, heavy. Her hand trembled slightly as she drank. When she turned to leave, Daniel's eyes were on her, not just watching, but studying her. Has anyone ever told you, he said slowly, you look exactly like your mother did when she was your age? She didn't answer. Later that day, Claire went into the attic. The air was dusty, stale. Boxes lined the floor. But one thing stood out, a small corner where someone had cleared a space. There, laid neatly on the floor, were her things. Her old pink blanket. A cracked music box. A stack of drawings she remembered making in kindergarten. And every single one was clean. Untouched. Like they'd never aged. Her throat tightened. On one of the drawings, a picture of her and her mom, someone had written in careful cursive, "You never should have left." Over dinner, she tried to tell her mother. "Mom, I found," but her mother cut her off. "Claire, please. Not tonight." She looked tired. Pale. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for her wine. Daniel set a gentle hand on her shoulder. "She's right, dear. Let's not spoil the evening." Claire slammed her fork down. "You went through my stuff, didn't you?" Daniel smiled calmly. "I was just cleaning the attic. Found some things worth saving." "They were burned," she snapped. Her mom sighed. "Claire, enough. Daniel's trying his best. Can you please be nice?" Claire stared at her mother in disbelief. Her mom's eyes looked glassy, distant, like she wasn't really there. "Yeah," Claire whispered. "Sure. I'll be nice." But that night, she locked her door. The next few days were worse. Claire would find her drawers rearranged, her perfume bottles moved. Once, she came home to find one of her baby photos sitting on her desk, propped up neatly, like a shrine. Another time, she found a small porcelain doll sitting on her pillow. It had her childhood haircut. Her blue eyes. When she confronted her mother again, she barely reacted. "Daniel just likes keeping the house nostalgic," she said. "You know how sentimental men can be. He's obsessed." Claire said. "Mom, please, you have to see this isn't normal." Her mother looked at her blankly for a moment before whispering, "Maybe you're just jealous." Claire's blood ran cold. "What?" Her mom smiled faintly. "He loves you too, Claire. You should be grateful." That night, Claire heard it again, humming. But this time, it wasn't coming from the attic. It was right outside her door. She reached for her phone, but it was gone. The doorknob turned. Slowly. "Claire." Daniel's voice was soft. "Can we talk?" "Go away," she shouted. He chuckled. "Don't be scared. I've been waiting for this moment." The door shook. Once. Twice. Then a loud crack as it swung open. Daniel stepped inside, holding something in his hand. A photo. Her first birthday. "You don't remember," he said, voice trembling. "But I do." "What are you talking about?" she whispered. He smiled, eyes wide. "When your mother and I were together, before she left me, I promised I'd protect you." Claire froze. "What?" "She said you died." But I knew she was lying. He took a step closer. "You came back, Claire. You always come back." She backed away until her legs hit the bed. "Stay away from me." Daniel dropped the photo. "I loved you," he whispered. "Even then." His face twisted, not angry, but desperate. His hands shook. "I made sure you'd never forget me." He reached into his pocket and pulled out the teddy bear, the same one she'd seen before. Only now, its button eyes were gone, replaced by small, glassy human ones. Claire screamed. She bolted past him, down the hall, yelling for her mother. But the house felt wrong, longer, darker, like the lights couldn't reach the walls. Mom. No answer. She ran to her mother's room and froze in the doorway. Her mother was sitting upright in bed, eyes open, unmoving. Her skin looked waxy, her expression peaceful but empty. Mom. Claire whispered. She touched her shoulder. The skin was cold. Behind her, Daniel's voice came soft and trembling. She wanted us to be together again. Claire turned slowly. He stood in the doorway, blood on his shirt, that same awful smile stretched across his face. She didn't understand, he said. But I fixed it. Just like before. Claire stumbled backward. You're insane. No, he said gently. I'm faithful. He stepped closer, the floor creaking under his weight. Now we can start over. She darted toward the window, shoving it open. Cold air rushed in as she climbed onto the ledge. Daniel lunged. Don't leave me again. Claire jumped. When she woke, she was in the hospital. Her leg was broken, her head bandaged. The police said they found her unconscious in the bushes behind the house. They found her mother too. Dead for at least a day before Claire's fall. But Daniel was gone. The attic, when searched, revealed hundreds of photos of Claire, from infancy to the present. All carefully dated. Many of them impossible. Some taken from inside her room while she slept. And in one old Polaroid, dated 15 years earlier, a younger Daniel stood beside Claire's mother, holding a baby that looked exactly like Claire. Months later, Claire moved in with relatives. She tried to rebuild her life, but something lingered. One night, unpacking a box of clothes, she found something at the bottom. A teddy bear. The same one. Perfect. Clean. Smelling faintly of cedarwood and decay. She dropped it and ran from the room. When she came back, it was gone. But on her mirror, written in fog though the window was shut, were 5 words, "You always come back home." Story 3, The Perfect Family Project. It started with a camera. When David remarried, he thought he was finally moving on. His wife, Clara, was gentle, soft-spoken, and endlessly devoted to his 2 children, 10-year-old Ben and 7-year-old Lily. After years of grief from his first wife's death, he was grateful for a sense of calm again. Clara brought warmth back into the house. But the camera changed everything. It was an old-fashioned camcorder, the kind that still used tiny digital tapes. Clara said it was her wedding gift to the family. She wanted to record happy moments, she said, so they could all remember how perfect life could be. At first, it was sweet. She'd record breakfasts, game nights, bedtime stories. She'd laugh softly behind the lens, encouraging the kids to wave and say "I love you, Mommy." But Clara wasn't their mother. And she hated when they forgot that. The first time David noticed something strange was during dinner. Clara had set the table with her usual obsessive precision, forks perfectly aligned, napkins folded like origami. She hit record on the camcorder and smiled. "Okay, everyone," she said in her sing-song voice, "let's tell the camera what we're thankful for tonight." Lily mumbled something about her doll. Ben shrugged. Clara's smile froze. "Try again, sweetheart. But say it nicely." Ben frowned. "I did say it nicely." Clara tilted her head, still smiling, but her eyes hardened. "Let's try one more time." With a smile. David chuckled nervously. "Honey, it's fine, really," but she didn't even look at him. "Ben," she said softly. "Smile." The boy forced a weak grin. The camera stayed on him for a full 10 seconds. Then she beamed and said, "Perfect." That night, when David replayed the tape out of curiosity, he noticed something off. Between each scene, there were strange cuts, sudden static, faint voices whispering just below the noise. And when Clara appeared in frame, the lighting shifted, colors desaturated until her face looked ghostly pale, her eyes darker than they should have been. He assumed it was a glitch. He should have known better. A week later, Clara announced her perfect family project. She wanted to make a full-length movie, their life together, she said, something to send to relatives and future grandchildren. Every night, they'd film a scene. Sometimes it was dinner. Sometimes story time. Sometimes just them sitting on the couch, smiling and laughing like actors in a commercial. But there was one rule: no retakes. No stopping. If someone messed up, they'd have to start again from the beginning. At first, it was exhausting. But soon, it became terrifying. Because Clara didn't tolerate mistakes. One night, during the bedtime scene, Lily forgot her line. She was supposed to say, "Good night, Mommy. I love you forever." Instead, she said, "Good night, Clara." The room went still. Clara lowered the camera slowly. Her smile didn't move, but something in her eyes snapped. "Sweetheart," she whispered, kneeling down. "That's not what we practiced." Lily bit her lip. "But you're not." Clara's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. "Say it right." "Mom," David said, stepping forward. "She's tired, okay?" "It's just a..." Clara turned, voice low but sharp. "She has to learn, David." "You all do." She picked up the camera again. From the top. Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Good night, Mommy. I love you forever." Clara smiled, hit stop, and kissed the girl's forehead. Perfect. That night, David found bruises on Lily's wrist. He wanted to stop it. He really did. But every time he tried to bring it up, Clara made him feel insane. "You're overreacting," she'd say with that calm, hypnotic smile. "You wanted a family, didn't you? You wanted happy memories." But the house didn't feel happy anymore. The walls seemed to echo at night, faint whispers, the click of a camera lens opening somewhere in the dark. David would wake up to find the camcorder sitting on the nightstand, red light blinking, as if it had been filming while they slept. When he confronted her, Clara insisted he must have left it on by mistake. "Don't you trust me?" she'd whisper, eyes wide and glassy. "I'm making everything perfect for you." One night, David came home late from work. The house was dark except for a single lamp flickering in the living room. He heard laughter, Clara's voice, soft and lilting. He followed the sound. In the center of the room, the camcorder sat on a tripod, pointed toward the couch. On the screen, the playback showed the family sitting together, David, Clara, Ben, and Lily, smiling, laughing, perfectly happy. But when David looked at the couch, it was empty. The laughter kept playing. He picked up the camcorder and rewound the tape. The footage was dated that same night. But in the video, he was there, sitting beside Clara, smiling as she leaned her head on his shoulder. He hadn't even been home. And in the background, something else moved, a shadow crawling across the wall, behind their heads. When he paused the frame, he saw it clearly, a tall, distorted figure standing over the children. The next day, he tried to take the camera away. Clara smiled as he held it. "It's mine, David. You're done filming." She tilted her head. "I can't stop. We're almost finished." "Finished with what?" "The story," she whispered. "Our story." When he tried to turn off the camera, the screen glitched, static flickering over her face. For a split second, her reflection on the lens was smiling wider than humanly possible, eyes pitch black. He dropped it. The light went out. Clara didn't speak for the rest of the day. That night, David woke to whispering. He sat up. Clara wasn't in bed. From down the hall came the faint hum of the camcorder. He walked toward the children's room. The door was cracked open. Inside, the glow of the red recording light painted the walls. Clara stood in the center, camera in hand, whispering to the kids, who sat stiffly on their beds, faces pale, eyes glassy. "Smile," she murmured. "Just like Mommy taught you." "Clara," David said, voice shaking. Put it down. She turned slowly, smile frozen. You'll ruin the shot. This isn't a game. Her head tilted. It's not a game, David. It's forever. The red light flickered, and for a second, the world around him warped, the furniture dissolving, the walls pulsing like skin. The children didn't move. He lunged forward and grabbed the camera. The lens cracked, and the light went out. Clara screamed. The sound was not human, high-pitched, shrill, tearing through the air. Then everything went black. When David woke, it was morning. The house was quiet. The camcorder lay in pieces on the floor. Clara was gone. Ben and Lily were sitting at the table, eating breakfast silently. He asked them what happened. Lily whispered, she said she'd come back when we were ready to smile again. Weeks passed. David tried to move on. The police searched for Clara, but there was no trace. The tapes were destroyed, or so he thought. One night, while cleaning the garage, he found a single tape labeled in neat handwriting, "The Perfect Family, Final Cut." He stared at it for a long time before slipping it into the old player. The screen flickered to life. At first, it was old footage, laughter, breakfast, bedtime stories. Then, slowly, the colors faded. A new scene began. It was his living room, right now. David stood on screen, watching himself pick up the camera, watching himself look directly into the lens. Then Clara's voice whispered, "Smile." On the screen, his reflection obeyed. His mouth stretched into an unnatural grin. And behind him, Clara's pale hand rested on his shoulder. The next morning, the neighbors heard screaming. When the police arrived, they found the children alone, sitting stiffly on the couch. On the TV, the camcorder played on repeat, a looping scene of the perfect family, all smiling, all still. Clara's voice whispered faintly through the static, "Perfect. Now we can remember forever." And in the corner of the frame, the red recording light blinked. Still on. Still filming. Still waiting for the next take. Story 4, The Locked Room in the Basement. When 13-year-old Jamie's father remarried, everyone told him to give his new stepmother a chance. "She's trying her best," his grandmother said. "She just wants to be a family." But Jamie didn't believe it. From the moment he stepped into her house, a sprawling, cold structure on the edge of a forgotten neighborhood, he felt like the walls were listening. The air smelled faintly of bleach and damp wood. There were no family photos, no warmth, no sound except for the constant ticking of a clock somewhere deep inside the house. His new stepmother, Claire, greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Welcome home, Jamie," she said softly. Her voice was sweet but carried something rehearsed, like a line she'd practiced in front of a mirror. "Your father's running late, but you'll get used to that. Come, I'll show you your room." Jamie followed her through long, narrow hallways where every light flickered a little too much. At the end of one corridor stood a heavy oak door with a rusted lock. Claire stopped when she saw him glance at it. "That room stays locked," she said quickly. "The basement isn't safe. Old wiring, bad steps, you could get hurt. So, promise me, Jamie. You'll never go down there." He nodded, but something about her tone made his skin crawl. That night, Jamie unpacked in his new room, trying to ignore how quiet the house felt without his father around. The clock kept ticking. The wind howled through the cracks in the windows. He pulled the covers tight and tried to sleep. But around midnight, he woke up. A sound echoed faintly through the floorboards, a slow, steady tapping, like fingernails on wood. He sat up, heart pounding. Then, beneath the creaks of the house, came something worse. A voice. Jamie, it was deep, broken, and familiar. His father's voice. Jamie froze. His father was supposed to be out of town, working on a construction site 2 hours away. "Dad," he whispered. The voice came again, clearer this time. "Jamie, help me," it was coming from under the floor. Jamie jumped out of bed, following the sound across the creaking floorboards. It led him down the hallway to that locked oak door. The air around it felt colder. His breath fogged. "Dad," he whispered again, pressing his ear to the door. "Help me," came the voice again, closer now. "She locked me down here." Jamie stumbled back. His throat went dry. "You're lying," he said, but his voice shook. He grabbed the door handle, it didn't budge. He tried pulling, pushing, but it was solid as stone. From inside, something thudded hard against the other side, making the hinges rattle. The next morning, Claire was making breakfast when Jamie came downstairs, pale and shaking. "Claire, there's someone in the basement," he blurted. "I heard Dad. He was calling for help." She looked up slowly, her smile perfectly calm. "Your father's fine, sweetheart. He called me this morning." "You must have been dreaming." "No. I heard him. I swear." Her expression didn't change. "You've had a long week. Moving is stressful." She placed a plate in front of him, pancakes shaped like smiley faces, but he noticed her hands were trembling slightly. "Why is it locked, then?" he demanded. "What's down there?" Her eyes flicked toward the hallway, then back to him. "There's nothing you need to worry about, Jamie. The basement's off limits." But that night, the voice came again. Louder. Clearer. Desperate. "Jamie, please, she's not who she says she is." This time, he didn't hesitate. He grabbed a flashlight and crept down the hall, heart hammering against his ribs. The light flickered as he reached the basement door. The air smelled like rotten iron. He crouched and peered through the keyhole. Darkness. Then movement. Something pale shifted in the shadows, crawling closer to the door. "Jamie," the voice whispered again. "Open it. Quickly. Before she comes back." Jamie stepped back, trembling. "How do I know it's really you?" A pause. Then the voice said something only his father would know. "You still keep that blue marble in your pocket, don't you? The one from the lake." Jamie's eyes filled with tears. He reached into his pocket. The marble was there. His hands shook as he ran to the kitchen and grabbed a bobby pin from the counter. He'd seen people pick locks in movies. How hard could it be? He jammed the pin into the keyhole, twisting, listening. Behind the door, the breathing grew heavier. Then, click. The lock turned. Jamie pulled the door open. The smell hit him first, damp, mold, and something metallic. His flashlight flickered as he descended the narrow wooden stairs. "Dad," he whispered. He reached the bottom and froze. The basement wasn't empty. It was filled with old photographs pinned to the walls, pictures of his father, his mother, and even him. But in every photo, their faces had been scratched out. Chains hung from the ceiling. A single chair sat in the middle of the room, its legs bolted to the floor, the leather straps dark with old stains. And in the corner, a figure sat hunched, back turned. Jamie's heart nearly stopped. "Dad." The figure twitched. Slowly, it lifted its head and turned toward him. It wasn't his father. It was something wearing his father's face, stitched together like a mask. The skin was gray, the eyes sunken and wide. It opened its mouth, and his father's voice came out, but wrong, hollow, like an echo in a tunnel. "Jamie. I'm so proud of you." Jamie stumbled backward, tripping over a step. The creature stood up, its movements jerky, puppet-like. "She wanted a perfect family," it whispered. "She said she could bring us back." Then a light switched on upstairs. Footsteps. Claire's voice, calm and sharp. "Jamie. What are you doing down there?" Panic surged through him. He darted for the stairs, slamming the door behind him, twisting the lock. Claire appeared at the top of the steps, her face half in shadow. "I told you not to open that door," she said. "Where's my dad?" Jamie shouted. Her smile returned, too wide, too calm. "Your father's been with us the whole time, sweetheart." Then the thing below began pounding on the door, harder and harder, the wood cracking under the force. Claire didn't flinch. She just stared at Jamie with something like disappointment. "I tried to make this family work," she said softly. "But you ruined it." The pounding stopped. Silence. Then a slow scraping sound came from behind the door, like claws dragging across the wood. Claire turned, placing her hand on the handle. "You shouldn't have let him out." The lock snapped. The door burst open, and the thing in his father's skin lunged forward, grabbing her, pulling her down the stairs as she screamed. Jamie ran. He didn't look back. He didn't stop until he was outside, barefoot on the cold pavement, staring at the dark house as the screams faded into gurgling silence. When the police arrived hours later, the basement was empty. No photos. No chains. No sign of Claire, or whatever had worn his father's face. But Jamie swore he could still hear his father's voice whispering from under the floorboards every night after that. "Jamie, come home." Story 5, The Stepmother Who Collected Faces. When 17-year-old Lily's father remarried, she tried her best to be polite. After all, her mother had died only 3 years earlier, and though her father had moved on faster than she liked, Lily didn't want to make things harder. Her new stepmother, Vivian, seemed perfect, soft-spoken, graceful, with the kind of beauty that looked timeless, almost unnatural. Everyone adored her. But Lily couldn't shake the feeling that something about Vivian was wrong. Not evil, exactly, but hollow. Like a mannequin that had learned to move just convincingly enough to pass as human. The first time Lily saw Vivian's vanity, she thought it was just an eccentric collection. The antique dresser was covered in perfume bottles, powder compacts, and framed photographs of women, dozens of them. All strangers. Each woman's face was beautiful but strange to look at. The photos were slightly burned around the eyes, as if someone had pressed a flame to them just long enough to blur that part out. "Who are they?" Lily asked, running her finger along one of the frames. Vivian looked up from brushing her long black hair, smiling faintly in the mirror. "Old friends," she said softly. "I like to remember them." Lily frowned. "Why are their faces burned?" Vivian's reflection blinked slowly, once, twice, and then she said, "Some memories aren't meant to look back at you." Lily laughed nervously, waiting for Vivian to say she was joking. But she didn't. She just went back to brushing her hair, humming a tune Lily didn't recognize. Something old. That night, Lily told her father about it. He chuckled tiredly. "Vivian's sentimental. You know artists, she's always collecting strange things. Don't worry about it." Except Lily did worry. A week later, when Vivian wasn't home, Lily couldn't resist. She snuck into her stepmother's bedroom. The vanity looked even stranger in daylight, rows of photos, each one different, but every woman was around Vivian's age, each one wearing a faint smile that looked forced. Lily leaned closer and saw something else. Each photo had a date etched on the back in elegant handwriting, a date, and a name. Catherine, 2004 Helen, 2007 Isabel, 2010. They went on for decades, all the way up to 2023. Lily froze when she reached the last one. Sarah, 2023. That was her mother's name. The photo showed a woman with blonde hair and kind eyes, but the area around her eyes was burned out, the paper warped and blackened. Lily's chest tightened. She remembered that exact photo. It used to sit on her dad's bedside table. Now it was here, mutilated, among Vivian's collection. And then Lily noticed something else. On the far corner of the vanity, half hidden beneath a perfume bottle, was a school photo, her school photo. Her own face. Her own name written beneath it in Vivian's handwriting. The burn marks hadn't reached her eyes yet, just a faint singe along the edges, like the beginning of a ritual. Lily backed away, her breath quickening. That night, she dreamed of her mother. But in the dream, her mother's face was wrong. Her eyes were dark holes, her skin stretched and smooth like porcelain. She whispered something over and over, "She took my face." When Lily woke, her door was open. She could smell perfume in the hallway, Vivian's favorite scent. The next morning, Vivian was waiting at the kitchen table, smiling too warmly. "You were sleepwalking last night," she said. "I had to guide you back to bed." Lily's stomach turned. I wasn't sleepwalking. Vivian tilted her head, her smile never faltering. Then who was standing in the hallway at 2 a.m., staring at me? Lily didn't answer. For the next few days, she avoided Vivian as much as she could. But one evening, while her father worked late, she heard movement upstairs, the faint click of a drawer, the whisper of a mirror being adjusted. Curiosity, or maybe fear, pulled her toward Vivian's room. The vanity lights were on. Vivian stood in front of the mirror, applying foundation in slow, deliberate strokes. But the reflection didn't match. In the mirror, Vivian wasn't wearing her own face. She was wearing Lily's mother's. Not a mask, not exactly, but her skin seemed to ripple and change, the bone structure shifting as if her features were sliding beneath her flesh. In seconds, she looked identical to Lily's mom. Same smile. Same eyes. Lily gasped, hand over her mouth. Vivian turned toward her, her face halfway between her own and her mother's, like two photographs blended in motion. "You shouldn't sneak around, dear," she said, voice distorted, half her own, half her mother's. Lily stumbled backward, tripping over the rug. "What are you?" Vivian's smile didn't fade. She reached up and touched her cheek, the skin flickering slightly beneath her fingers. "You wouldn't understand," she said. "But I'll show you." She stepped forward. Her hand reached for Lily's face, cold as ice. "You have her eyes. I've always wanted eyes like hers." Lily screamed and ran. She locked herself in her room, pushing her dresser against the door. The house went silent again. For hours, she sat trembling in the dark, listening. Then, faintly, from the hallway, came that same humming, the one Vivian always sang while brushing her hair. Lily grabbed her phone to call her dad, but the screen was black. The phone wouldn't turn on. In the silence, she heard it, the faint click of the vanity mirror opening down the hall. Then Vivian's voice, "We'll finish your picture tomorrow." That night, Lily didn't sleep. When her father came home in the morning, she begged him to leave. "She's crazy, Dad. She's wearing Mom's face." He frowned. "Lily, enough. Vivian's been nothing but kind to you. She's lying. She collects faces. Look at her vanity." But when he went upstairs, the vanity was gone. Every photo, every burned image, vanished. The room looked pristine. Vivian stood in the doorway, calm and sad. "She's been under a lot of stress," she said softly. "I'll take care of her." Her father sighed. "Maybe you just need rest, honey." That night, Lily packed her things. She was leaving. But before she could climb out the window, she saw something move in the mirror, her reflection smiling back at her when she wasn't smiling. It raised its hand before she did. And it spoke in Vivian's voice. "Don't run. I just need your face." The lights flickered, and the reflection began to melt, warping into Vivian's form. Lily dropped her bag and ran down the hall, but the air felt heavy, syrupy. Every mirror she passed showed her reflection differently, older, younger, burned, smiling with someone else's mouth. She burst into the kitchen, gasping, reaching for the door, but Vivian was already there. Her skin shimmered with hundreds of faint outlines, like faces pressing out from underneath, eyes, mouths, whispering beneath the surface. "I wanted to keep your mother," Vivian said gently, stepping closer. She was beautiful. But beauty fades. I needed someone new. She raised a silver blade from the counter, not a knife, but a sculpting tool, fine and curved, its tip glinting in the dim light. "I only take what deserves to be remembered." Lily backed against the wall, trembling. "You're insane." Vivian smiled faintly. "No, dear. I'm an artist." And then the lights went out. When the police arrived 2 days later, they found the house empty. No signs of struggle. Just one thing on the vanity table that had been left behind again, a new framed photo. It was Lily's school portrait. This time, the burn marks around the eyes were complete. And beneath her name, in perfect cursive, was a date, Lily, 2024.